get involved with them. Final point I'd like to say is also about sharing experiences. For me, this has been a new event. It's the first time I've come to a big oceans event, and it's been really good talking to my colleagues, and I find it really supportive hearing about their experiences, their problems, the way they've addressed it, and if I can help by sharing some of our experience, I will. Many thanks.
Thanks very much, John. And here's a beautiful shot of, I believe this is Diego Garcia, is that right?
Yeah, that's actually the bit that isn't in the MPA, but it's sort of, if you look into the distance, it's a really pretty shot with all those clouds. So in the distance is our MPA.
You can tell that John's a diplomat. He's giving a shout out here to the partners.
That's the American.
Right.
That's where the base is, yeah.
On the right hand side.
Again, thank you to John and the British government for being here today. Finally, but certainly not least, it is my very great pleasure to introduce Lonnie Wilhelm. She's the manager of the Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument, and she's here today to share a little bit of her lessons in regard to going big. Lonnie?
Going last meant, except for John, everybody else took my time, and you can barely say Papahanaumokuakea in 1 minute. I'm here really, it's my pleasure to represent the other managers of Papahanaumokuakea. I'm representing one of 3 of the co-managers. Oh, that's the next slide, isn't it? What am I supposed to press?
It's the left click.
Left.
Yeah.
All right. Representing the 3 management agencies, our co-trustee agencies are NOAA, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the state of Hawaii. But we have 7 management agencies on the ground, including the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, and it's my honor to present this to you, our 12 years of history jammed into 4 minutes on behalf of them. So Papahanaumokuakea is we were established as a reserve in 2000 as the first large-scale remote marine protected area. So in Carlos's terms, I guess we reflected that first big jump. We comprise the most remote 3/4 of the most remote archipelago on Earth. And as you've seen already with the other sites, for us, isolation has been a gift. At a time really when the world's oceans faced most serious decline, these coral reefs and ecosystems you've just experienced are among the healthiest, least disturbed, and most extensive left on our planet. And being subtropical, Papahanaumokuakea is on the northern limit of coral growth. According to our predominant creation story as Native Hawaiians, the coral polyp is our eldest ancestor. So interestingly, it is also the northern extent of Polynesian migration and settlement. So I focus on that just for a moment because although Papahanaumokuakea is typically known for its natural heritage, really the early seeds that were planted were really also about our cultural heritage and the very incredible sacredness and significance of this place to my ancestors. And for us as Native Hawaiians, there's no difference or separation between nature and culture. Therefore, it wasn't any different to talk about one without the other, but when it was promoted globally and even nationally, it really was focused on coral reefs. That's not a bad thing. But over time, in our 12 years, we really have worked very hard to have our management approach focus on incorporating culture, science, education, and community, and we're very, very proud of that. We also focus regionally and internationally. There's not too many atolls in North America, so we have turned to our cousins to the south and to the west to really help us understand what our shared challenges are and how we can work effectively together. So we've invested in partnerships and initiatives like Big Ocean. And I never thought other oceans, and so thank you, Christophe, for making me think that may be Pacific-centric. It was never intended, it was kind of a joke as a name to begin with, but maybe we need to add an S. So managing for the long term, we also invest in educational strategies, so similar to what you've heard from Carlos and others, to really build that next generation of managers who are going to be both biologically and culturally grounded. Because let's face it, that is what is really required for us to be successful. We know that, we've learned that. When we don't do that, what happens? So Papahanaumokuakea, in addition to being a particularly sensitive sea area, we were inscribed in 2010 as the first mixed natural and cultural heritage site in the US. I'm sorry, translators, for speaking so fast. I'll try to talk slower. It's not a gift I have.
Control it.
Wait. So, what are benefits of going large? And my list is a bit longer, I think, because maybe we've thought about this for a little bit longer in our evolution. So, the conservation benefits of Popohanaumokuakea reflect many of the same ones that have already been shared, so I won't dwell too long on these. But in short, scale provides protection of whole ecosystems, but also of whole processes, and I think that's really important to point out. It's also pretty much an insurance policy for the future, providing refuge and also increased understanding of life histories and roles of various species within the ecosystem. This is particularly important when we're talking about what are the roles for food fish. So I would assert that the conservation benefits of large-scale areas really do contribute to food security because they protect these prey and the species and their prey as we learn more and more about their important role, and we have a lot more work to do in this area. So in terms of science, our scale and our remote location combined really enable research largely absent from anthropogenic impacts that really help us to understand and separate compounding effects and stressors. It enables research that's focused on connectivity across and interconnectivity among ecosystems, provides understanding and comparisons across wide gradients due to the expansive latitude and depth. As an early pioneer of this new genre of marine conservation in terms of policy, I think, let's face it, when you go this big, it forces attention of government. You don't get the same attention when you're talking about something small. So this resulted in very high-level policy debates, trust me, very interesting debates, and decisions about is there a value of this that wouldn't have occurred again if it weren't for scale. The establishment of Popohanaumokuakea really provided an unprecedented commitment that has initiated a global race now to supersize MPAs. So when operating at scale, also in our EEZ, our establishment challenged the current status of conventional ocean use, or ocean use that has conventionally been dominated by single sector interests. From socioeconomically, I think that we can say that it really also helped us transform our collective understanding about the ocean. We didn't think about these things before and what were their value. It helped to do that. But for me personally, more importantly, I think it's reunited our archipelago, renewing a sense of wellness before our baseline, a sense of hope and understanding of what our oceans look like before the baseline of wellness shifted to give us hope that it could be restored again. Our designation honored the sacredness of the area across our entire span, honoring traditional pathways, and it offers us a place to understand abundance the way our ancestors did, so we can understand again what we must do to reconnect in ways that they did. What are our challenges? You've heard some of them. Large, it's expensive. I know there's calculations about lower cost per unit, and that's great, but we also have to be cognizant that there's a lot there. There's a lot of per units in order to add up. So, let's be realistic. It's also remote. When it's remote, it's extra complicated. For us, it takes a week by ship to get to some of our remote areas. All of our primary threats, climate change, alien species, and marine debris are all global in source, beyond the control of management. You've already heard about enforcement. It's also hard to connect with people when you're talking about a place that they don't live. And it's hard to keep that commitment to say, I know we got a lot of problems where we live, but how about we protect a place that's already good, that goes over really well all the time. So we always have to go and work on that and continue to help to message in a way that people understand. And also, we're never going to fully understand this place. It's complex, it's huge, we're never going to have enough money to pay for the research. And for us, that we have 7 management agencies, and we are also not an MPA, let me set that for the record, we are a natural cultural protected area, designated to protect both nature and culture, but the agencies that are set up for just conservation, they need support and capacity to be able to learn just how. So, what are our lessons? Well, public and political support obviously is critical.
Ooh, too
Everybody loves
fast.
that.
Should I just stay on that one? Wait, oh, I went back. How do we go back? I messed that up, sorry. Should we just look at the happy turtle? Okay, never mind what the other side says. So political and public support is critical. Our 5-year process that we had 52,000 public comments, over 120 public meetings. We went out there. I think that built the trust that you need to go forward. Also, we learned you gotta have good science partners. You gotta work together to create common language so that science will matter to management. But when you have that, it is incredibly powerful. You have to communicate and educate. It's just never enough. You got to do it all the time. And I think for us, we face the, didn't we already protect that syndrome? Papuhanaumokuakea is so yesterday. So how do you sustain funding? You have to remain relevant. And we have to think generationally. If we are in charge of trusts for perpetuity, we have to think generationally and build that next generation of leaders so that they can do a job much better than we can, but also they remind us why we are doing it. Mahalo nui.
Such an extraordinary set of stories that we've heard from our 4 speakers. I want to recognize them and all that they've done, not only for these sites that they manage, but for the legacy that they and other managers like them are leaving for the next generation. So really want to acknowledge all of our speakers today. Thank you. We do have a few minutes. So I would like to reopen the floor. This time we're going to shift the conversation. We're going to talk about the role of size and scale. There are 3 sort of leading or provocative, if you will, questions that I'd like to throw out there. You can either ask a question or give a comment about any of the presentations you saw, or you can respond to these questions if you would like. The first question, these questions are coming from the Big Ocean members. They want to hear from you on this. Is it better to go large with the size of marine protected areas? Is it better to go big? Does size matter? Is it better to get big? And if so, why do you think that is? Why is it better to go big if you think so? And if not, why not? Second, what are the benefits that you think come from large-scale marine protection that may not be found with smaller ones? We heard some examples from the 4 sites today, but we want to hear from you on that. And then finally, what are the unique challenges or issues that are going to come when we're trying to create and manage these really large areas? So just like our last session, I'm going to ask for John's help to sort of help moderate from the floor. And I'm going to go ahead and scribe here. We're almost out of flip chart paper, but I think we're going to be okay. So we're going to go ahead and open to the floor to all of you. Yeah, I'm sorry. We do want to ask folks, thanks, May. We do want to ask folks to go to the mic just so the translators have an easier time to hear us and translate. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Mae Bruton-Adams. I'm with the Nature Conservancy in Micronesia. And I'm really glad that you were talking about culture and getting people engaged. But the other question you had was, how do we sustain over the long haul? And then one of the questions there is large always the best way to go? Micronesia, before they went large, actually started very small. We had MPAs scattered all over the whole region. And the idea was connecting all of those regions together because we had a common bond and we're Micronesians, for goodness sakes. And these boundaries that were imposed upon us, if you will, that made us our own little nations kind of divided us. So the Micronesia Challenge brought us all back together. But before that, it was a group of dedicated people who knew there was a need and went out there and engaged each other first. And that was this, the Micronesians and Island Conservation. I have a few of these that I'd like to share with people who want to talk about sustaining a challenge, because it's not the government leaders that are going to do that, because something else comes along later and there's a new best thing to start focusing on. When I got into environment, it was invasive species and it was biodiversity conservation. Now it's climate change. They're all related. I don't see where those separating lines are, but it still comes back down to the people who actually do the work, not the people at the policy level. So you want to sustain your stuff, get together networks and people who are actually going to do the work on the ground. So I've got some stuff to share.
Thank you, May.
You're welcome.
would actually put the proposition, it's not better to go large, it's better to do both. You have to do small and you have to do large. But if you do not do large, then the world has no chance at all of getting to the 10% target, because the small areas are so expensive bureaucratically, legally, and they're nearly always closer to populations that the burden of doing them will collapse the system. So you need the small ones because they're important, but you also need the large ones. And the obvious challenge is that the large ones are usually far away from at least large populations of people, so they are difficult to relate to those people, which brings difficulties in funding, in support, in just general mentality. Whereas if small ones close to populations, people can see their utility because they can see them at weekends and such things like that. So.
Thank you.
Hello, Alfred Kawaki with the LMA Network. I'd like to say that first, congratulate the sites and for the achievements, and I think from LMA experience, the first question is, yes, we do agree that we need to go large, but start small and work through the process of going through communities, islands, provinces is also important.
Thank you.
Just a brief comment to the last two persons. The Chilean experience, for instance, it's clear a matter of opportunity, and in our case, we would have no chance of having a large marine protected area in the coastal zone. In the continent, it's impossible. I have been working with marine reserve for many years actually, and we hardly can get small marine reserves or even small parks. So many interests involved there that it's impossible to get them all agree to do this kind of protection. And Motumotirohiba Marine Park actually succeeded because nobody lived there. That was the first thing, And even industrial fishermen agreed because it was too far away from the continent and from their bases. So they said, no, no problem, go for it. But we know exactly that never happened in the continent. But that's why we have to go for both.
Thank you. Christophe Lefebvre. I would like to share the Alistair's view, because I think for building the global MPS network, we need both small and large marine protected areas. To get coherent and resilient marine protected areas to global scale, we need a kind of mosaic of marine protected area, from the coastal zone to the ICs. So it's not easy to build, but I think this experience of ocean-scale concept is a right way to define how we can proceed for achieving the Aichi target in the ICs. It's a good way to proceed, because it is beyond the national jurisdiction. It's not so easy to create MPAs beyond national jurisdiction. Another point of view is we got this kind of discussion at the first International Marine Protected Area Congress in Geelong in Australia. That was in 2005. About do we need a new IUCN protected area category for large marine protected areas? And the response was no, we don't need. Not necessary. Large marine protected area can be considered within the 6 categories. Just a question of rules to be implemented within this large scale area. So you see, we could put again this question of categories. I don't know if Dan Laffolle is there. I should be very pleased to get the opinion of the WCPA about this concept and this the relation between the large marine protected area and the IUCN protected area categories. I don't know if they remember of the commission.
Merci.
Yeah.
Holokami, Oceania, the IUCN Oceania. But first of all, congratulations to all the presentations. Quite inspiring what has happened in the last 4 or 5 years. And just very quickly on the issue of large, there's no question, at least in my mind, on large, that we do need to do it. I think the challenge becomes how do we leverage large in what I think is a convergence that's happening in the last 5 years. The World Bank's come on board, climate change funding that's not coming down. How do you start to leverage a message that becomes an economic message in a green, when the world is thinking green economy, green growth, climate change, that these large pieces of ocean are a valid investment. And I just think it's the best chance we've got. What we don't want to see is that you suddenly get a swing the other way when we don't deliver on big commitments. And there's just as much a concern for me